Greetings and salutations, friends. I'm Prince Amari, gay dating coach, matchmaker, #1 best-selling author of Lasting Love at Last, the gay guide to attracting the relationship of your dreams. And in this video, we are talking about rating romantic compatibility. So I did a live stream about this the other day, but I noticed that the words on the board were like mirrored. So I'm redoing this video for y'all so you can actually see the scorecard that I created. So that's what we're going to talk about. How do you know when someone is compatible? How do you rate that compatibility, especially in a first few dates or in several months? Doesn't really matter. You can use this process. This is the exact process I teach my clients. So leaving nothing out of this, let's walk. So there are 4 categories of compatibility that we're going to look at in this rating system. So first we have mental compatibility. This is going to be intellectual stimulation, right? And so the primary measure for mental compatibility is ease of conversation. The easier you're able to talk to somebody, the closer your values, the closer your perspectives, your level of intelligence, your interests, like all those different things make conversation easy. So the simplest way to measure this is ease of conversation. And I'm going to give you this simple measure for all the categories because it can be really complex, really complicated to try to figure out all the different things from a compatibility perspective. So this really simplifies that and makes it really easy to know if it is a good fit or not. Okay, so ease of conversation for mental compatibility. Then we have emotional compatibility, and this is really about psychological safety. Do you have emotional intelligence skills? Are you both able to regulate and co-regulate together? Do they validate your emotions, right? And so the primary measure here is emotional safety. How safe you feel to be open, to be vulnerable, to express your emotions to them, all right? Third is physical compatibility. And this is really about, the sexual chemistry, the interests, right? Like all of that. And the simplest way to measure this is comfortable touch. So even from a non-sexual perspective, how comfortable it feels to hold hands, to hug, to kiss, all those things really tell you a lot about how easy sex is going to be or not with the person. And I want to be very clear, this is not related to the love language physical touch, right? It doesn't matter what your love languages are. This is literally about the act of touching, because you can't, I guess you kind of could technically have sex without touching if you're into like mental sex, but that's a different conversation for another video. But yeah, you're going to be touching generally if you're having sex, and that touch needs to feel comfortable, okay? Then finally, we have material compatibility. And this is really about lifestyle alignment. So we talk a lot about, does finances matter, right? Like similar lifestyles. Do we live in a similar way? Are we both able to travel and right? Like all those different things can be whittled down to the one core measure of time availability. If you can spend a good amount of time together, notwithstanding like some other specifics, but like if you don't have enough time, the relationship isn't going to be able to grow. It's going to struggle. If you do have enough time, it's going to be easier for you to develop the other areas of connection that make a relationship worth living, and we can figure out everything else. So the disclaimer here is this is the simplified, straightforward version of measuring compatibility. This is not like all inclusive of everything, but these are the essentials. If you don't have these things, then compatibility is going to be really hard to keep going. And to be very clear, the point of compatibility is sustainability, right? So it's not, does this person have all the things that I like or want? It is, does this person have qualities that will make a relationship with them sustainable? And also, do I have those qualities? So before I show you these ratings, I want to say that you can also use this scale to determine your own readiness for a relationship. So each of these measures work both for you as an individual, but also for measuring compatibility with someone else. All right. So we can actually walk through that and look at what that looks like. But these are those 4 categories I told you. So mental is ease of conversation, emotional is emotional safety, physical is comfortable touch, and then material is time availability. And I'll talk about this first before we get to like the ratings. I'll show you how to do the ratings in just a little bit. But from the personal perspective, looking at yourself, from this first category, ease of conversation, are you already a conversationalist, right? How easy is it for you to talk to people? Do you have really well developed communication skills? Because your ability to communicate is gonna impact the ability of your relationship to thrive from that communication mental compatibility standpoint. Same thing with emotional safety. If you're not a safe space for your own emotions, it's going to be very difficult to create safety with a partner. And this is really challenging for a lot of men because culturally we get taught or excuse me, conditioned to ignore our emotions, right? To see emotions as bad, that they make us weak, right? Like all those different things. And so the core of all of these four, the most important category for emotional or for romantic compatibility and connection is the emotional category, right? Like this is the thing that makes everything else worth it, even from a sexual perspective. If we are thinking about sexual satisfaction, the number one determinant of that is the emotional connection we have with the partner. So this is really important. And if your own emotional skills aren't developed, if you're not a safe space for your own emotions, it can be really difficult to create that level of safety in a relationship. Okay, from that physical touch perspective, if you're not comfortable in your own body, then it won't necessarily feel comfortable to be touched by someone else either, right? So you can see how these go both directions for yourself, but also for the partner. And then finally, for material compatibility, if you don't have time for yourself, you don't have time for a relationship, friend, right? Like it's gonna feel like too much, like they want too much time, like it's overwhelming. You might start to resent them because they want to hang out with you, like all those different things. So because compatibility is, let me say this differently. Discussing compatibility is pointless if you don't already have the skills and capacity to handle a relationship with someone who is compatible. So it's really important that you take stock of where you are in each of these categories first, because the easiest relationships are the ones you have the skills to handle. Okay? The number one reason anybody is single is because they're trying to have a level 25 relationship with a level 3 dating skills. And you can actually discover your dating skill level by clicking the link in the description. And there's a dating skill quiz there if you want to find out more about that. But let's go back to our categories and the rating. So those are the categories. Let's talk about how do we rate them. So you can see we had the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is going to be essentially equivalent to like A, B, C, D, and F, right? A 5 is a A, 4 is a B, 3 is a C, 2 is a D, 1 is a F. From the grading scale perspective. But the way I want you to think about this is any one, so the number one in any of the categories, this means that the connection or that particular category is toxic, okay? So it is actively harmful. It means that you're not safe. It means that you're feeling perhaps disrespected, right? So ones are always toxic, get out as fast as you can, not worth it, okay? Anything rated a 2, this would be the equivalent of a D. So it's actively draining. It might not be as toxic. You might not be in danger with that person or in that particular relationship, but you're not really getting any benefit. At the end of it all, you're losing by being in a relationship or being connected to this person, okay? C, if you think about school, like they say C's get degrees, right? The average relationship is gonna be or have 3s in the categories, right? Because the average person is going to have average relationship skills. And so it's going to create an average relationship where we have ups, we have downs, it kind of evens out, right? It's relatively sustainable. And what's true about the sustainability piece is just because we stay in it doesn't mean it is beneficially sustainable, right? And so, like, you can be in a relationship for 20 years, that's a 1 or a 2, right? So the longevity doesn't really determine the satisfaction. And I think a lot of times in our culture, we think, I want a long relationship rather than a satisfying relationship, because the satisfying relationship could last a few months to a few years, but be very satisfying. And then those longer relationships can be very unsatisfying and harmful, even if they last for 50. So we can't really equate level of experience or longevity to level of satisfaction or skill. They're not the same thing. Related, but not the same. Okay. So 3s or C's, average relationship, average compatibility, average dating skill. 4s are above average. So this would be equivalent to a B. right? And this is going to be actively nourishing. So you're getting much more benefit out of the relationship than, the cost of being in the relationship. And all relationships take work, all relationships cost. It's just going to depend on, again, the level of your skill, how easy or difficult that cost is to manage. And then fives, this is going to be top tier. Never had anything better than this. This is like cream of the crop. I want to qualify that. Never had anything better, meaning all of the connections that I could possibly have, it's a five. This is like the top, right? And so you might meet many people who are going to be a five in one or more categories, right? Like you might have really great mental connections with a lot of people or really great emotional connections, but rarely will you find one person who's a five in every category, or your interaction is a five in every category. That's not realistic. And so what a lot of us face, especially highly ambitious gay singles who are driven for or toward perfection, what happens with a lot of us is we don't know how to define the difference between perfect and good enough. All right. And if we can't do that, we will always be unsatisfied because our satisfaction is 100% based on our expectations, and expecting perfection is an unrealistic expectation. All right. So you're never going to get perfection. But what you can get is above average. You can get excellence in a few categories, right? And so let's talk about the scoring of that. So now that you know what the numbers mean, A, B, C, D, or F, equivalent to the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Let's use an example. Let's say you meet someone and for ease of conversation, it's a 4, right? It's great. You have a great time talking, really interested. You want to keep talking to the person. There's shared humor, right? It's funny. You play a lot mentally, right? Cool. It's a 4. For the emotional safety, let's say it's a 3, right? Because neither of you have ever really done a lot of emotional work. And when I say emotional work, this can be working with a therapist. This could be working with a coach. This could be independent, reading books, going to workshops, right? Intentionally developing those emotional skills. Because again, as men, because we get taught since the time we're born, essentially, to ignore those emotions, we don't automatically have those skills when we become adults. So we really have to intentionally invest in developing our emotional skills as men. And so maybe you've done some of that, maybe not, but the average person kind of hasn't. And so dating another man, maybe the emotional connection is a 3, right? For physical touch, let's say it's a 4 there, right? Feel very comfortable, want to touch them more. And then for material, it's 3. Like, y'all see each other once a week or whatever. Like, every once in a while, it might be twice a week or something, but kind of busy, but try to make time, right? So, altogether, when we take these numbers, we're going to multiply each of them by 5. Very simple math. Don't worry, I promise it's not that hard. So 4 times 5 is 20. And pardon my writing in this direction, it's going to be a little weird. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. And then 3 times 5 again is 15. So all together, we have 70. Okay? 70 out of 100. And the way that this scale works, an A is going to be a 90 to 100. B is going to be 80 to 89. C is 70 to 79. D is 60 to 69. F is anything below 60. You need at least a 70 for a relationship to be sustainable and not draining or toxic for you. All right? At least a 70. So this is the minimum required to have a productive relationship. Now you might be like, I don't want an average relationship, and I'm going to reiterate that above average relationships require above average relationship skills. So if you haven't invested in developing relationship skills to be higher than average, then you can have a great relationship, but like your expectations have to be realistic. Okay, this is not something that you can just be like, oh, one day I hope to meet the person that's perfect for me and we're gonna live happily ever after. Like, relationships are not a fairy tale. So as much as we can be realistic, it's gonna help us a lot. The number one reason relationships fail right? Once we're in them, the number one reason they fail isn't infidelity or money. It's the frustration we experience because of our unmet, unrealistic expectations. So yeah, I might have to repeat that again throughout this video. Like, we got to be realistic. 70 is the minimum. This is not necessarily what you're going to find. You can definitely find something that's higher than that, but 70 is the minimum. It is unrealistic, though, to expect to find many people who are already fives, as I said before. So A's in every category. But great news, all relationships take work anyway, and all relationships can certainly improve. But we're only going to grow about 5 to 15% through the course of that relationship. So this 70, it's a 70 now at the beginning, but with some work, it can grow up to 75 to 85, right? If we give it the max 15%, it can go up to an 85, which is an above average relationship. And if we get into a relationship with someone who's already an 80, we can create an A relationship, right? But it's going to take work to get to that point rather than expecting to find a relationship that's already an A and just sustaining it. Like, you had to do a lot of work on yourself to be able to have a relationship like that. I hope I'm explaining that in a clear way, but yeah, so that 10 to 15% or 5 to 15% is going to look like 1 to 3 of these points. So let's say you have a total of 3 points you can distribute across these categories. So you could take that 4 to a 5 and we will have 2 left. Maybe you take that 3 and emotional up to the 5 and we just use our last 2, right? So you only have up to 3, but the truth of the growth percentage is going to depend on how much of a growth path you're already on. If you're already interested in personal growth, you've already been working with a therapist, you already work with coaches, you already read a lot of books, like those things, you're on a high growth path or a steep growth path, and your partner is too, then maybe it is likely for you guys to improve that relationship by 15%. But if you haven't done any intentional personal growth work, you're not really interested in going to therapy, you're not interested in working with a coach or reading any books or developing any additional skills or growing in any of those ways, at most you might grow 5%, right? And so when we think about the potential for a relationship to develop or falling for someone's potential versus capacity, a relationship that's like a 40, the potential is only capped at 15%. So the most we're going to get out of that is a 55%, which is still an F, right? And likewise, if we are not clear on someone's capacity versus their potential, we often get into a lot of sticky situations because we tend to think that, like, oh, the potential, I need something with a lot of potential. I want to take it to its heights, right? But potential is the icing. Capacity is the cake, right? And delusion is when we choose potential over capacity, because you're what you see as potential is really your fantasy about the other person, right? But their capacity is what determines their trajectory for a relationship. The capacity is what we're measuring here, not the potential, okay? And so if you choose potential over trajectory, you're going to get caught up every single time and you're going to be disappointed because we are not likely to change as much as our imaginations give us the indication or the permission to dream about for other people. You can't change them. You can change you, but you can't change them. So unless you're willing to change yourself, and grow your skills at 10 to 15%, like, the relationship isn't likely to change much because you have no indication on the other person's growth, unless they're already on that steep growth path, which likely would mean that our number wasn't below 70 in the first place. So, long way to say, capacity is the cake. Okay? Choose capacity every single time, including your own. Because again, the point of compatibility is sustainability. The easiest relationships are the one you have the skills to handle. And if you don't have the skills to handle a relationship with someone who is compatible, discussing compatibility is kind of pointless. So check out the link in the description for other resources. If you want to schedule a consultation, you can do that as well through the link there. And I will see you next time. Sending you love, peace, and glitter. Adios.